If the Islamic revelation is valid, then that is God. Although there's still a mystery to the Islamic God, that is God in a fundamental. The Trinity will be false. If the Catholic revelation is true, then that understanding of God is true, though there's a mystery, and the Islamic one is false. That's what we start. That's what we will start off with. Looking at the revelation itself, and from that start reasoning, rather than starting reasoning and then looking at revelation. Don't you think?
Okay. So what I would say to that is, whilst Christians sort of acknowledge that the Trinity is a mystery, Muslims would emphasise that Tawheed is simple and easy to understand. So it seems to me that it seems to me that while Islam does acknowledge that there are mysterious things about God. However, it doesn't emphasise it. It emphasises the simpleness of Tawheed, the oneness of God. It emphasises the simpleness of the five pillars, etc. Whereas in Christianity, it seems to me, you've got the mystery of the Trinity, you've got the mystery of the incarnation of Christ. You've got all of these sort of mysteries, and it doesn't seem very appealing or logical.
But what if it's true? Oh, not logical. That's another matter. Now you must tell me where it's not logical. If you really mean that, or it just as a slip of the tongue.
Okay. So when I say logical, I'm going to stick to logical. I think.
So give me an example of the illogicality of the incarnation, for example.
Right. So it's you've got the concept of, start off with the Trinity. So you've got God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit.
No, just the incarnation.
So you've got God the Son becomes incarnated as the man, Christ Jesus.
So by which we mean God the Son, the eternal second person of the Trinity, takes to himself, attaches to his divine nature, a human nature, at the moment of conception 2,000 years ago in the womb of the Virgin Mary.
Right. Okay. So you've got
Are we logical so far?
Yeah, so far, yes. So we've got the hypostatic union, fully man, fully God, in Jesus. And then, you get the Gospels where, you get contradictory statements where, Jesus says, for example...
well, hold on, stop a moment. With the incarnation itself, you seem to agree with me that itself was not illogical. Then you go into the Gospels where you might find what you think are contradictions.
Okay,
that's a different thing, isn't it?
Let me correct myself. So in the Islamic understanding, the Christian concept of the incarnation is in itself an inherent contradiction.
And that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, fully man, fully God, united in one person, for want of a better word. One
hypostasis.
Right. I would say the incarnation is problematic.
And this is where I want to understand the illogicality. Because I could accept somebody saying, this isn't true, this didn't happen. But to say it's illogical is another thing. And that's why I wanted to say to you whether it was a slip of the tongue to use the term logic, or whether you really meant it. Because,
I did.
Because you've got divine nature. That's a logical concept.
So you got what?
Human nature. That's another logical concept.
What's divine nature?
So to have a divine nature which attaches itself to a human nature, attachment is not an illogical idea.
Attachment is not a logical idea?
It's not an illogical idea.
No.
Sorry.
And then the uniting of the two. We're in a conversation that's just running along at the moment.
Listen.
When you have two natures, one person, that itself is not illogical.
Right. Well, so I'll tell you why it is. So you've got one nature, God, another nature, man. It's like apples and oranges. It's like talking about a cat and a dog.
We get an apple, and we attach to that apple an orange.
No, it doesn't work. You can't.
I'll tell you why that.
Wait a minute. Now you hold on. You can't. Don't forget. We teach. There's no admixture of the two natures. They don't mingle. They're completely.
It's another, what does that mean?
Well, look at an apple. God, apple. Then the human nature, the orange. Glue them together. Now, work is not the issue. Work is a matter of what is possible.
It's a bad analogy.
Logic is different.
Why are you gluing apples and oranges together? It makes no sense.
Now you're having fun. But I cannot see how, in terms of philosophical logic, really talking about logic in itself, I cannot see how this is sound to be illogical. I can see you saying you don't believe it.
That's a common sense argument.
Now, we can't use common sense. Common sense to one person is not common sense to another.
That's true.
Common sense isn't common.
Best not to use that.
I know.
So, to me, it is. I think we've pretty much exhausted this.
No, we haven't.
Well, I just need to, on the question of logicality, I don't see how far further we can go.
18 laws.
Nature.
Okay,
God, nature, orange. man, nature, apple.
So tell me how Christ can be
Genesis,
fully man and fully God, and how there could be no, as you said, admixture between the two.
Synergy.
So in other words, he's like a walking contradiction. He's like man, and he's man 1 minute, he's God the next minute. However,
No,
he's both at the same
that's
time.
not what we believe.
Well, we don't say
But
1
it's
minute
just-
he's 1 minute he's... We don't say that. You're
Right.
saying that. What it is...
Okay. So why does he say at one point, "Why callest thou me good? There's none good but God." Another moment he says, I am. Well, the high priest says, "Are you the son of the Most High?" or something like that. Anyway.
You're actually delving into particular instances of his
No, but
speech.
he contradicts himself
but
in his
that's
his
a different.
speech
That's again a
within the
different
Gospels.
point. Remember,
But it's
the
related.
question is how can okay. Here's an example. Say we never had any Gospels, and I just gave you this concept.
Okay.
Then you'd have to argue the logicality or otherwise on the basis of the concept itself, not on the basis of some
I
secondary
think without the Gospels,
documents.
it would be even harder to believe. I mean, I think.
And that's not about belief. It's about whether it's logical. And that's why I thought we'd exhausted this.
Okay, so tell
this
me why
issue.
it's logical. Just give me a
Because
Catholic
you
argument.
can take a nature of one thing, join it to the nature of another, and those natures can subsist in the one entity.
So give me an example of that in another
divine
example.
There's no example. Every created entity has its own nature.
Yeah, give me an
But
example
that's
of
a created
two
entity.
natures being.
Jesus is the example
Jesus
to give
say
you.
another example?
Well, why? If God has not made an entity in the created order which possesses anything other than one nature, then we can't give you an example, of course.
Exactly. So then.
Exactly what?
So then you've got no. There's no.
No analogy.
Yeah.
But what does the absence of analogy mean in relation to whether something's logical or not?
Well, to me it does, because if you were able to give me an example of, like, I gave the example of apples and oranges. So
Yes,
if you-
and I took it happily.
Right. So, like, okay, to argue your point, for example, they breed, for example, a lion and a tiger together, and you get a liger. So, but that's an example of two similar things, right? But we're talking about.
But they have one
God and
nature.
Man are two completely different, natures.
Yes, yes.
Granted, some
but
people
one
would
is
say
God
God is like a
Almighty.
man, and the Old Testament says, the Lord.
You're going into writings again, rather than just addressing the inner harmony of the concepts.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing that because the concept is harmonious in itself. As I keep repeating, it doesn't mean it's true. The truth of it or otherwise is determined by revelation, the quality of the revelation. Well, it's because I could create a concept just now of anything, invent a new religion about anything, and you would examine whether its inner self is contradictory. It might be, it might not be. It might be perfectly harmonious, but still false. I just made it up.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Sorry,
To
can I ask you
establish the
something?
truth or otherwise of it, in a moment we're just dealing with this guy. The question of whether it's true is the important point to me. Once to me, I'm satisfied. I've not seen a philosopher, a logician, suggest that the concept of the incarnation is actually illogical.
I think a lot of people.
They don't know. Philosophers aren't known to be strong Catholics
Name me a philosopher.
because they don't believe in it.
The
But that's
incarnation is
different.
perfectly logical with philosophy. Not one philosopher said this concept is just not true.
I'm sure a non-Christian.
Tell me one.
Can I